Howdy, folks. What's going on? This is Outlaw Hatfield back at you one more time, guys. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have to force myself through this one. I'm not feeling real well tonight for some reason. I ain't been getting a lot of sleep. That might have something to do with it. But we are going to soldier on. We are going to have a good show tonight. We are talking conspiracy theories, and we have got our local conspiracy theory expert, Dead Horse, on with us. How you doing, Dead Horse?
Howdy, how you guys doing?
We are good, brother. You got some good stuff for us?
Oh, I think I have some excellent stuff tonight. Probably some conspiracy theory stuff that people have never heard of before.
That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. That's why we have you on here. Gary, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here.
Hey, can't do the show without the co-host. Most of the time, anyway. We got Sarge with us, C4 Defense. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm kind of like you, a little bit tired. I appreciate the invite though, and I'm probably good till about midnight. But I found out I have to work in the morning, so not too early, but I still gotta work in the morning. So yeah.
Your schedule's been running about like mine here lately.
Yeah.
I think that's both our problems. We just need to get some sleep in us.
We need to sleep. That's for sure.
Yep. And of course, we have David. We're in the end. How you doing, David?
Doing very well tonight, Outlaw.
This is the first time you've been on the show, huh?
Yes, sir, it has. This is it. This is number one.
Well, this makes you an official outlaw.
Uh-oh.
You are now part of the gang, brother.
I feel like one of the family already, sir.
We're happy to have you. So, well, guys, get out your tinfoil hats and kick back, get ready to relax, because this is going to be a wild ride. I have a feeling. Dead Horse has been researching some things. Told me, he said, I got some things you've never heard of before. It's going to shock you. It's going to surprise you. And the weird thing about it is it all turned out to be true in the end. So, without further ado, Dead Horse, what you got for us? Let's in on it.
Well, let's see. Let's start with conspiracy theory number one that turned out to be true is Project Sunshine. Have any of you guys ever heard of Project Sunshine before?
That's actually a new one on me.
Not off the top of my head.
Nope.
Okay, so this is probably one of the ones that no one's heard of. So right after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we were all about nuclear testing, right? And we wanted to test nuclear fallout on the human body. And in order to do that, we needed fresh body parts, like fresh dead bodies. So we had government agents that were going around the country to recently, people who recently passed away, right? And then flashing a badge and getting a coroner to cut off a leg here, an arm there, and stuff like that. And then families begin to notice, like during an open casket or something, like, hey, like my kid's missing a leg. His death didn't involve any kind of missing a leg, right? Where did his leg go? So it was a conspiracy for a long time that, like the government was stealing these like body parts for testing, and it turned out to be 100% true that they were stealing body parts, and not only body parts, but entire babies and children, right? And to do radioactive testing on, and they were putting them in these, in these hot zones where they were doing nuclear testing. And even aboard ships, like a lot of those videos you see of like nuclear testing, and there's a whole bunch of ships around and a bomb goes off under the water or on an island, a lot of those tests had these body parts and entire dead bodies on board these ships.
Really?
And that turned out to be 100% true.
So who blew the whistle on that one?
From my understanding, it was just declassified documents. It's something that wasn't like even a whistleblower. It was just that enough time had passed that they just declassified these documents and said, oh yeah, like during this time we were using dead people and body parts without the permission of the families, right? And I believe there was even a lawsuit filed by like more than 1,500 families of people. And I don't know if the government ended up paying that. I bet they probably did.
I'm
But,
sure they did.
yeah, so I mean, because they were taking body parts and entire children and stuff without permission, and to
And
do this nuclear testing.
that is absolutely amazing.
And then,
Uh,
somewhat linked to that, there's this famous case of a nuclear explosion on an island, and that some Japanese fishermen were involved, and that the blast yield was like something like 4 times higher than what was expected. And these Japanese fishermen got all irradiated, and the Japanese fishermen, before they died, because they died with just in days, said that they were like told to go that way by U.S. naval, like they were like herded into that radioactive area, and that they were like almost used as guinea pigs. But that's more of an unsubstantiated claim, so that was never proven to be true. But it's kind of related to that same thing.
well, wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a taste of what we've got coming up for the rest of the night. Before we go any further, I'm going to do a shout out to see who's out on the YouTube side here real quick. We have Warsaw Patriot. Caleb's out there. The Gun Snob. How you doing, buddy? Martin. Zippy's out there. C4, you're everywhere. Let's see. Travis is out there. The Scotsman. Hey, Scotsman. How you doing, brother? We got a few out there watching. Gizzards hanging around out there as well. And over on the Gun Channel side, Dead Horse Pants, Gun Snob, Gary, you're over there. So not a bad start for the night. I'm sure that Matt's probably not let out completely yet, so they're still hanging around over there for a little while, but maybe they'll catch up with us later. So guys, what kind of conspiracy theories do you personally subscribe to? We'll start with Sarge. Anything jump out for you?
What ones I kind of buy into? Was that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I don't really buy into them that much. I guess maybe I just kind of keep them in the back of my mind, and then as things happen later, maybe like, oh, well, that makes sense. But nah, I can say I'm really not a conspiracy theorist. I like to listen to them though, and I definitely like to debate them. But I can't say I buy into them.
Well, that's part of the fun of these kind of shows is we do tend to debate different aspects. The first one we did, we had Ghost on, and man, he's all about the JFK conspiracies, and he's got all kinds of knowledge behind that. So he just went on for, I guess, 30 minutes just on JFK. I loved it.
There's some odd things happen in that one. I don't know if I'm all in on the like the second shooter or anything, but there was definitely something at the end. Yeah, that doesn't add up.
Well, there's a lot of things that didn't add up to that whole thing. But Gary, what about you? Is there any conspiracy theories that jump out to you?
Well, I'm kind of a lot like Sarge as far as I don't buy into a lot of them, but I'm very interested in reading about them. One of them I've read had to do with the Lincoln assassination, believe it or not, and about, it had to be an inside job. There had to have been some other people involved in this. There's no way the guy could have gotten as far as he did. And did he even really die? Did John Wilkes Booth actually die in that barn? There's varying theories as to whether or not that was actually his body. And I read a book on it once, and it was really interesting. So, you can't help but, at least somebody like me, I'm attracted to it, even though I don't buy it all. But my mind starts to think, well, what if, Could it be?
Well, how could they prove to the masses that it was his body back then?
Especially when it's burned up.
How could they have proved it? It may have been, it may not have been. There's no way to really know.
It was obviously a cover-up so he could go fight vampires.
Well, supposedly some guy in Oklahoma several years later He was on his deathbed, and he admitted to his daughter that he actually was John Wilkes Booth, or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, there were so few people then. There was, I mean, less ways to physically document things. I mean, it's not like they could have took his picture. I mean, not very well. I mean, they did, I'm sure, but it's just, it could have been somebody else. There's just, there's no telling.
And you can go on about people like Amelia Earhart, for example. You know, mysteries and stuff like that.
It's interesting that you would bring up Amelia, considering what was earlier this year or late last year. They said that they'd actually found the wreckage of a plane and a female body, and apparently she didn't die in the crash, and she actually landed the plane, and she survived for years before she actually died. So who knows? Um, well, that's another theory, conspiracy theory. I guess we'll never know the truth of it.
So, do I buy into a lot of them? No, but I sure am interested in reading about them.
Yeah, I think that's all of us. I love to read them, get into them a little bit, and some of them actually makes you start to think, hey, maybe they onto something here. Maybe, just maybe.
It's hard to rule them completely out. A lot of them. Now, some of them are really far fetched, but a lot of them there's just enough truth to it. It's like, well, maybe it could have been that way.
Well, possibly. David, what about you? Where do you land on this issue?
I have to be brought back to Pearl Harbor and the invasion and the reporting of enemy aircraft and enemy submarines by both the Navy and local planes that were flying that morning. And they were reported, and they were patched right up the chain of command, and nothing happened. And there was rumors that were floating around that it was actually they needed something to get the American people to want to go to war again after World War I. And there's a lot of research that's been done on it. And I don't know if I'm 100%, but I'm curious by it, enough to where I investigated enough to want to watch documentaries and do a little research on the internet myself.
Yeah, that's one of those that there is a lot of documented files out there stating that yes, this was reported, that was reported, but nothing was ever done about it. So it's either the United States government allowed it to happen, or they truly didn't know it was coming, or didn't believe it was coming. So it's one of those deals. Now, let me tell you about a conspiracy theory that I've got. And this is the biggest one of the last year. I honestly believe, and it concerns Gary and George. We all have a theory that George is actually in control over there. Gary's just a puppet. So, no proof, mind you, but that's that's the theory that's going around.
That's an interesting theory.
Would you like to confirm or deny this?
Gary? I think anybody who's ever shared a home with a cat pretty much can tell you that the cat is in charge.
They adopt you as their human.
Yeah, pretty much. Cat decides when you get up, when you go to bed, when you eat.
I am the master. You are the slave.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, folks. There you have it.
True.
Gary is just a puppet. So, Dead Horse, what else do you have for us, man? That first one was kind of interesting.
Okay, so let's see. Should we do another one that probably no one's ever heard of?
Yeah, sure.
So, all right. So, Woodrow Wilson. Who knows who Woodrow Wilson is?
President of the United States, yes.
Yeah, President of the United States. So, you remember what number he was?
Oh, God.
28.
Okay, yeah.
And during a World War One. He was in office, right? So there's a conspiracy theory that has pretty much been proved to be true by many experts that in pretty much the last part of his time in office, it was actually his wife that made all the decisions, right? And for over a year, okay, because he had this stroke, this really bad stroke that was like totally left him like, not vegetable state, but like he couldn't talk and like, like the one side of his body was paralyzed, stuff like that. And we didn't want to release this to the public at all. So it was kept very hush hush, and he wasn't like put in the public spotlight at all for that last year. And she made all the executive decisions.
You can't be weak in time of war.
And she was like, you could almost say that she was like the first, female president of the United States, really. And later on, she said in her autobiography, like she acted as a steward, right? That's what her words were, and all that. Like she basically just went and talked to him, and he said, "Okay, do this," and she went and did it. But like all the evidence, doctors, everything said like he couldn't even like he couldn't even like feed himself. He couldn't do nothing, like let alone make decisions on anything. And that she made all the decisions for over a year. So we had a woman president for over a year. There you have it.
Wow. And again, the question comes up, does any of the people that's stating that this actually happened, is there documents to it?
Oh yeah. This is very well documented to the point. Like I said, this isn't like like conspiracy truth. This is like document. Everything I'm talking about tonight is actually documented to where it's generally regarded in all circles as like fact. It's there's actual plenty of documentation out there that shows like, hey, this guy was so fucked up, he was basically a vegetable, right? And that she was making all the decisions. Like many different people wrote about it.
Now,
it just wasn't publicized in the media, right? We didn't want anyone else thinking, because this was during like like World War One and stuff. We didn't want anyone thinking that like we have this like weak ass president and that and stuff. So literally for the last year of his presidency, like she was acted as president.
If they would have known that, they would have come directly at us.
Yep.
Directly.
Yep. Now, did Congress know about this, or was it just the White House?
As far as I know, it was pretty much an inner sanctum of like special, like probably like chief of staff, stuff like that, right? So it was really just like the inner sanctum, and he was kept out of like all limelight, like so hardly anyone knew about it. It was kept like very hush hush, because at the point in time that we were in, and actually there's a thing where some of the executive decisions that she made may or may not have helped resort in like the Great Depression. So so there's even some question to that, like how much influence did she have on policy that might have resorted in one of the greatest calamities this nation's ever seen. So
Outlaw. Also, his medical records were available after a certain amount of time, and his stroke was so severe that he couldn't even get out of bed. He was
he couldn't do nothing. Yeah, he was like like almost vegetable state. He couldn't talk. He couldn't do nothing. Like he couldn't even talk. Like there's plenty of like doctors and stuff, like medical records that like he couldn't even talk. So how the fuck was he? He couldn't move. Like he was messed up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by the Crazy Scotsman. How you doing, Crazy?
I'm all right, brother. How you doing?
We're good tonight. We're doing pretty good. Little under the weather, but we're going to soldier on through, get this thing over with. And G Webs has joined us. How you doing, G?
Good. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, not a problem, brother. G, let me ask you a question. What conspiracy theories that grabbed your attention? Which ones out there that really just make you think, hey, there's something to this, or could be something to this?
Communists infiltrating our educational system to influence culture and fuck us up. Can I swear in this chat?
Hey, yeah, sure. Do what you want.
stuff that we have to deal with, inner struggles. I mean, it's really easy to throw rocks at glass, and I think that they've done that with the infrastructures and stuff that they saw weaknesses in.
Well, Scotsman, what about you?
I was gonna say, if we can't fucking swear in this chat, I'm out. Honestly, man, there's so many out there. There are some that come to mind, like 9/11. We all know there's various different theories on that. Most recent one, like the Vegas shooting and stuff like that. I'd have to say, though, there's a lot of various ones concerning good old Hillary.
Those will all turn out to be true at the end.
Oh, I guarantee you they will. Every damn last one of them. She is the worst piece of shit out there.
And I don't think anybody on this panel is going to disagree with that.
The ones I don't buy into, and then I don't put a lot of stock in, is when they say, well, they had to have done this. No, you have to have some sort of evidence or proof or something beyond a shadow of a doubt that points you in this direction. Like they say, like that Vegas shooter, there had to have been more than one person. No, not necessarily. Not from what I heard. So in what little bit I've heard. So I like the ones that have something that compels you to this may be true.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. To be a conspiracy, even a conspiracy theory, there has to be some, proof, evidence, tangible evidence, something that you can grab onto and say, okay, this doesn't make sense.
Yes.
And without that, there is no conspiracy. And that's what makes all of these things that we're talking about tonight, especially the ones that turn out to be true. I mean, think about it. If it would have came out in the 1940s, 1950s, that we were using body parts and cadavers on nuclear testing, what would the American people have done? There would have been a hell of an uprising.
No, there wouldn't. Are you kidding me?
I think there would have been.
I don't think so. We've been using them since 1905. We've been using cadavers for the 1911s. It was Thompson, in fact, the guy who made the Thompson submachine gun. He was in charge of the 1911 trials, which took place in 1905, and it was his idea to shoot at corpses and meat to see if a .45 was really a worthwhile cartridge. So they've been doing it at least through military as a government since 1905.
Yeah, but the way this is working is these corpses and cadavers were not legally obtained. They were stolen, just taken.
Yes.
So that would have been the difference. Could you imagine being parents of a child that had died, and come to find out that child's body, instead of being buried where you had intended for it to be, was put on a ship somewhere and subjected to nuclear testing?
Yeah, you're talking about what, during World War II, the Second World War,
after World War II. Yeah.
Okay, so from a perspective of now, after a Cold War and all the peace, that a generation or two of peace that we've had since then almost, it's easy to say that. But after World War II, after 2 world wars, where the ultimate technology was aluminum rivets and a jet air engine, I suspect that you might find some people that were upset, but I suspect, honestly, I'm not just trying to be argumentative, you'd find just as many people, if not more, that were so patriotic they would have been proud that their people were able to participate and help out with that to save lives.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can see that point too.
Yeah.
That was a different time. We had just got done with a war that looked like it was going to wipe out the planet.
And possibly could have, given enough time. Dead Horse, what else you got for us? Hit us with another gem.
Okay, so how about the conspiracy that John Lennon was spied on by the FBI?
That one I can believe.
Yeah.
So John Lennon, in interviews on TV, I can't remember the name of the talk show, but it was like a super popular talk show, like Ed Sullivan or something, right? And
Probably
back then,
Devitt or something like that.
yeah, back in the 70s, he came out and said that the government was spying on him and that they had agents following him around. Well, come to find out, back in like 2010, like the things finally got released, that the FBI did put him under surveillance in 1971, and they thought of him as a threat because of his anti-war songs and stuff. So they put him on this whole watch list, and they had him followed and surveyed. And then they tried to have the Immigration and Naturalization Service deport him and all this stuff. And but John Lennon, yeah, like the peaceful John Lennon guy or whatever, right? That we think of all peaceful and stuff. Like I get, he was a threat to the FBI.
John Lennon, national threat to national security. I can see that. I honestly could see that.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, if they can put John Lennon on it, imagine what other people nowadays say stuff and like are controversial or whatever, like talk show hosts, whatever. Like might they be putting on lists too, right? And surveying.
I would say anybody that says anything that is anti-government is probably on a list somewhere.
Well, don't you figure people that could put on lists are potentially people that travel to, places on the globe that have some sort of, mark on them or something? And there can only be so many people that travel to these places. It's possible that they, have a criteria that says, like, if they travel to XYZ country, then, they're a priority to be on the list. And then if they, being famous or whatever, they hit a couple other criteria, that might be a thing. And if they travel on some kind of a tour or something, it's possible that they go to all kinds of countries that would put them on lists.
Oh, definitely, I can see that. But the problem is that the documents that were released about John Lennon specifically quote that his songs, like "Give Peace a Chance" and stuff like that, these anti-war songs, like they literally specify that they thought that was a threat and like for an anti-government movement and stuff like that. So it's not just
I don't know. I mean, we got a time back then before the internet, so there was still microfilm. It was possible for somebody to hand something to somebody with documents on it, in the size of a period on a typed paper or whatever. They could microdot and all kinds of things. So you physically had to go somewhere. It wasn't like now where you have fax machines and all kinds of electronic data distribution. So it was necessary for stuff that needed to be physically smuggled to be in something. So maybe it wasn't John Lennon, but he's driving around with whoever else, his entourage and his crew and his equipment and his machines. And maybe it's possible that they said, okay, this is somebody who's running around all over the globe. If somebody bad wanted to send something all over the globe, all I'd have to do is stick it on his amplifier. And then if we watch him 24/7 and some guy runs up and grabs the amplifier and runs off with it, and then in Istanbul, somebody comes up and grabs that same amplifier, maybe they're aware of something. So is it possible that it wasn't, I don't know, that it was a, they have to be aware of potential issues. So they're watching somebody who's, like I say, running all over the world. Plus, wasn't he like super, not necessarily pro this country, and he wasn't from here?
I don't know. Actually, I think he was pro-American, but he just had a different. He was totally like passive, right? Like he was like total passive. He didn't believe in violence at all, right? Like at all. Like he was total. Yeah, just a total passive.
Huh.
But anyway, I got a really good one for that. I can't wait to see what you guys think about the next one.
Well, okay, shoot.
All right, Gaydar. Have you ever heard the conspiracy theory about Gaydar?
No. I've never even heard of Gaydar.
Gaydar. So Gaydar was a way to detect gay people. So back in the 60s, yeah. Okay, so back in the 60s, the Canadian government was so paranoid about homosexuality that it developed a Gaydar machine. Okay. And so the government hired a professor who developed this machine, a way to detect homosexuals, right, in federal employees, because back then I guess you couldn't be homosexual and work for the government, right? So this machine, they would show people pictures of gay images, and this machine like stared at their eyes, and based on their pupil dilation, would say, "Oh, you're gay or you're not." And more than like 400 people got fired from from the military, from government jobs, all sorts of shit, because they popped up gay on gaydar. And Canadian, that's real. That really happened back in the 60s.
And that's documented?
That's documented.
Wow.
Canadian
gay. They made it. They figured out that the flaw in that was the machinery, right? Because that could be altered. So now they do it with a psychological test. And if you go to a gun shop and you look in the display case and you look at the 9mm too much.
I was gonna say if you look at the Glocks too much, but
either or. You know, Glock 17, Glock 19. If you get a little woody looking at one of them, there could be something there. Maybe. Possibly. But that's a conspiracy theory for another time.
Well, if you guys have questions on the gaydar machine, go over to Joey Cuz's channel, sub him, and send him a message, and the gay pirate will give you all the information you need to know.
I even got a better one that you guys haven't heard of next. They just keep getting better.
I'm going to be sure to relay that to Joey next time I talk to him.
Oh, don't worry. I already texted him and told him.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as he knows.
I'm going to say, if they had a gaydar machine in the 60s, imagine what they got now. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay, what else you got for us? This is getting good. That one was wild.
All right, so the Dalai Lama is a CIA agent.
That I don't see at all.
All right. Public records, right, from the 1960s. The CIA paid the Dalai Lama $180,000 a year. This is back in the 1960s. The CIA, this is public information available right from the U.S. government. Okay. And then not only that, the CIA also funded the Tibetan resistance to the tune of $1.7 million per year. But they specifically paid the Dalai Lama $180,000 a year. CIA agent. Bam. Technically, they're paying you. The CIA is paying you like that, like you're a CIA agent. Same.
Wow.
Well, maybe not an agent, but like an operative or whatever. Like,
yeah, operative. So what the CIA was paying him for basically was to disrupt China's infrastructure. Okay, because China, like you've seen the Free Tibet stuff. I think everyone knows what's going on between Tibet and China. Basically, China says, "Oh, you belong to us." Tibet's like, "No, we want to be free." Well, the China has helped, the CIA has helped Tibet and helped pay the Dalai Lama to help fund like an uprising and a resistance, right? So technically, he's like, yeah, he works for the CIA. I mean, he gets paid by them, so it's yeah.
And
says you're locked on Sarge. Are you still locked on Sarge?
Might be. Hold on a minute. Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Thanks to the Gun Channel side for the vendors.
Thank you, Gun Channel side. Whoever that might have been out there. Let's see.
Claw. Somebody named Claw.
Oh, well. Clay.
Oh, is that how it's pronounced? Okay.
Yeah. I think he might be one of those that was staring at the Glocks too hard. Anyway.
So no one wants to say anything about the Dalai Lama taking in a 6-figure salary since the 60s. From the CIA.
I'm not sure what to say about that. I mean, you hear Dalai Lama, you think, world peace and, harmony. Not a look for a 6-figure salary. I'll be a spy for you.
Well, hold on. are we talking about clandestine stuff being conspiracy stuff? I mean, it's hardly conspiracy if it's just something that's done clandestine, right? So I could totally see that if our government wanted to get money to Tibet, which could have political significance, and we don't want to start a war since it's China trying to steal it, then maybe it's a way to give money to a guy who I mean, can you imagine that it's going anywhere bad? It's not going to some grenade launchers, right? I mean, that's good money going to a guy who's doing good. So, I mean, that could just be clandestine ways to get money so that people are are better off, and that's nothing for us as far as national money.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds more like he was contracted out to help prevent a war. Versus, so when you talk about him being peaceful and he's helped prevent a war, so he's still doing his job. He was just contracted out by the CIA to make it even more so.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, can you get a better? I mean, that'd be ideal if we had something like that out there in every area that we had strife. Because exactly, that's an awesome point. It was worth every penny for stopping people from getting aggravated with each other.
Yeah, well, maybe the CIA needs to throw a little money toward the Pope. Maybe.
A little difference between Dalai Lama and the Pope, I think.
No, yeah, I agree, but
Pope's got a couple of bucks.
Yeah, that's a conspiracy theory all in itself, right there. I would love to poke around in the Vatican for a couple months. See what they got locked away in the basement. Probably some things you probably didn't want to know, but be interesting. Dead Horse, what else you got?
How about the fake battle that brought us into Vietnam? That gained us support for Vietnam, called the Gulf of Tonkin incident in August 2nd, 1964, which was a fake attack to provoke American support for the war, right?
Wasn't it Israeli fighter planes attacking an American ship?
No, that's different. So that was much later. So this was back before Vietnam, and really before, like, we had forward advisors in Vietnam and stuff, but shit like hadn't kicked off yet, right? And we were really trying to like push to send in troops there and do stuff. So in order to gain support, we had this ship out there, and I think it was just a destroyer, and it maybe it was a cruiser, but anyway, all of a sudden, like, we don't know, right? Like, all of a sudden on TV and newspapers, and the president comes out and says there was an attack by Vietnamese, like, torpedo boats and stuff on the ship, and like the ship had sunk 2 of them and had sustained damage and stuff. And so that gained us like, oh shit, the Vietnamese attacked one of our ships, right? That's all the people thought, right? So like, okay, yeah, let's go kick their ass. So that helped us go into Vietnam. Well, it turns out that when all the documents came out, that there was no Vietnamese ships, and our ship was just firing into water. And there's even American pilots who were flying overhead who were like supposed to be like scouting these Vietnamese ships, and they were like, dude, there's fucking nothing there. There was nothing there. They were just shooting into water. The ship wasn't attacked. It didn't take any damage. Like, and it was like all fake. Like everything was fake.
Well, I've talked to people who were around back then in different levels. I guess I'd probably figure out who I'm talking about. But anyway, and I never had known about this till a conversation with them, but there was more going on the global stage. And Vietnam was a relatively inconsequential corner of the planet, considering the other hot spots were like Italy and Berlin, right? And Europe had just seen 2 world wars. And something was going to need to be done with Russia. And since we don't have 2020 hindsight, conventional warfare was the option to nuclear. And it was potentially a way to prick some pressure on a blister, or pick some pressure, prick something that could relieve pressure on, this tension that was going on in a massive Cold War. So do we want to have Europe explode again? And when a lot of our resources come from that area, can we afford literally? Can we have a Cold War, or a conventional third world war if it literally is in the rubble of the European factories? it turns into battles of superpowers and nuclear. So I'm not saying that there's any excuses or nothing, but that was something new to me, and I had always been skeptical of the Vietnam police action anyway. But it makes more sense to me when you look at it with that perspective, that if they had to do something somewhere, and if that is the case, and they decided this is a place to do it, that again can whatever factors, this is the place to do it, then wouldn't they start at something like that? Or wouldn't if they needed to start it on a particular time for some reason, wouldn't they start
that's pretty much what coined the phrase false flag attack, right? Is that single incident. So that's where, like, now where we hear all these about false flag attacks, it was really that incident that kind of coined that phrase.
It's interesting how many of these conspiracy theories involve the United States government.
Why is that? Because we're the most powerful superpower on the planet, and we're the one that consistently stands up for others?
You trying to tell me there's conspiracy theories without them?
There's a few, not many. No, I'm not saying that. I mean, I think what the United States government does, it does mostly for the benefit of the people, of the United States and the rest of the world.
I don't know if that's unnecessarily. I'm just going to be argumentative or devil's advocate, but I don't know if that's true, because there's certainly things that we lose money on, and I think that sometimes we do things to stop communism or to stop fuckers, and then sometimes there's just things we're going to lose money on, like a flood or something. There's just things that we lose money on. So I don't know if we are always trying to help ourselves out, but I think we're also pretty affluent in that respect. If we can. I mean, certainly there's scoundrels that'll hoard money from tragedy, but for the most part, I think that we're gonna fall on the side of democracy versus tyranny. But anyway, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I know what you're saying.
Thank you.
But we also live, right? So how the hell are we gonna know about conspiracy theories in Afghanistan?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know about like other countries' conspiracy theories because I don't live there, right? So I don't hear their news or their incidents and stuff all the time.
I don't even know about like Canada's conspiracy theories. They probably think we're out to get them.
I think Canada's biggest conspiracy theory is Biker Bob.
That America's going to invade them.
I don't know if he's getting paid by the CIA or not.
I think Biker Bob is secretly Bigfoot in human form.
Bob got contacted by the CIA, but he didn't understand. So now instead of him getting a salary, he's paying them a bill. So he totally misunderstood. He's paying them.
That actually makes sense now. That clarifies everything.
Speaking of conspiracy theories to do with our government, that's exactly what my next one is.
Okay.
So the next conspiracy is our government poisoned alcohol to kill people during the Prohibition. Any of you guys heard that one before?
No, that one. That's another one of those completely new ones for me.
Okay, so this one's kind of has a partial truth to it. So what happened is it wasn't really like our government poisoned it, but they had it poisoned. So what happened is during the Prohibition, people were buying industrial alcohol, and then they were making their moonshine out of that, right? And mixing it and stuff and doing whatever they do to cook their moonshine, right? So, so our government went to the makers of the industrial alcohol and said, hey, we want you to add these toxic chemicals to it. So, people stop drinking it or whatever. But they didn't make them put warning labels on any of the bottles or anything that, hey, we added all these toxic, dangerous chemicals to it. And so for that 7-year period of Prohibition, a whole bunch of people died. Over 10,000 people died of bad booze, poisoned by, this industrial alcohol, all these chemicals that they put into it. So over 10,000 people died in that 7-year period.
Do you think that was malicious, or they just didn't understand and didn't think about the warning label?
Didn't think ahead, you mean?
I'm just wondering.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would like to think that it wasn't malicious, but maybe it was kind of
actually, I saw it.
Go ahead, David.
I saw a documentary on this, and to believe it or not, when the government did this, the moonshiners and the people that were making what they called back then bathtub gin, and that's where they're just making spirits in their bathtubs, and these are done in inner cities, and it wasn't exactly corn liquor that was done like back in the country and stuff, but basically they knew exactly that it was poisoned. They tried to dilute it, and they tried to do various different remedies like filtering it through burnt wood, charcoal and stuff, but they were just after the cash. And that's what it made people go blind. It killed people. And the government had put those chemicals in there thinking that people would stop drinking it, but not realizing that most people don't manufacture alcohol. They just buy it.
And like they said, no warning labels, no, and it's not like your sailor is gonna say, "Hey, look, when we got this stuff, it was poisonous, so drink at your own risk."
Ethyl alcohol, or what did they do? Because I know ethyl alcohol will make you go blind.
I've seen some moonshine make you go blind. Drink enough of it.
No, but like wood alcohol and things like that. I remember that from science class. If you break it down, that alcohol will make you go blind. That's one of the
Right.
things.
As soon as you start to distill like the mush, right? So it starts to evaporate out of the still. It starts to consolidate on the curly pipe, right? The first stuff that comes out is the lightest, I guess, and that's the stuff that kills you. So they say if you start pulling your stuff out of your still, and let's say like beer can size cups, even though you're probably going to fill a couple of gallons, right? You start pulling it out in beer can size cut glasses. So let's say, I forget what the ratio is. If you end up getting 10 glasses of moonshine out of there, you throw away like the first 2 or 3 or whatever it is. Or you just use them to like light a candle because they're just plain alcohol that'll make you go blind. The rest of it is all the different grades of alcohol behind it, and you blend all those to get your moonshine that you want. Like the last stuff will be really watery, but it's kind of a blend in between.
That's close.
Yeah, it's called taking the heads off the moonshine. Because the first part will have that like G Webs was saying, that'll make you actually go blind. And then basically, as long as the steel runs, the proof of the alcohol will constantly degrade until there's no more sugar being turned into alcohol. And basically, then they mix it, and then they'll add water to it to get it down to their proof.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they mix it up to get the flavor, and then they add a shit ton of water, right? And then it turns it into moonshine.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, too, they'll take that mash after it's less alcohol, but they'll just throw more mash into it, right? Kind of like a stew or something. You just keep adding to it.
Yeah, you can keep the still going nonstop if you got enough men running it. It's just, when you start running stills for long periods of time, that's usually when people blow them up because they're not a sealed unit. And you have to do things to make them seal up. You can use oatmeal. There's all kinds of little tricks that they use. But basically, the longer you run it, the hotter the steel gets. And, copper will start to, break down from pressure. You can get clogs up inside it. It can, it can leak alcohol vapor, which as soon as it hits that open propane or wood stove underneath it, it's just going to go boom.
Huh.
All of Ellis's chats turn into how to build a still.
It's interesting how that happens, especially when I have a law enforcement officer sitting here with me.
Yeah.
It's not my fault, I promise, sir.
Who grew up in the home of moonshine around here?
Right after the show, Ellis runs out of the chat and jumps over the hood of his car and burns off. And Sarge is like, oh.
So,
You ever bust up a still, Sarge?
Do what?
Have you ever busted up a still?
No, I haven't. I've searched for a few, but no, I haven't. I mean, like I said, when I say I live in the home of that, I like, yes.
Yeah, yes. North Carolina is big on moonshine.
Yes.
So, so is West Virginia for that matter.
Yes. I mean, a lot of these places that they show on the TV shows about it, I've seen, and these people met these people, not dealt with these people, but yeah, we're all in amongst it right here.
But it's illegal to make it, I guess, for production. But you can just make it in your backyard, like you can brew beer, right?
No.
For yourself?
No, you cannot. It's non-tax paid liquor. It's illegal to make.
Is there any state?
It's called, what is it called? It's a spirituous liquor. You're not allowed to make that. You can make wine, you can make beer in small batches. You cannot make liquor.
Is that a state thing, or is that everywhere?
Well,
That's
I think
federal.
it's probably state to state.
I thought it was federal.
The federal
Well, you
can
just
only
need a
worry about
license.
so
You
much.
can do it. It's just like owning a suppressor. You just need a
Yes.
license. Because I know
You
there's a
can-
guy here who
Oh.
basically makes liquor in his garage, but I think he has a license.
Yeah, you can make legal moonshine. It's the same stuff. You can make it. Yes, there's distilleries, and you can do it yourself. But then you fall under the FDA, and there's all different types of things that you have to follow because it's a beverage at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You have to have a license.
Yeah, you can't just make it. Well, I mean, you can. If you never sold it to anybody, I mean, the odds of getting caught are like slim to none. So
Yes. And
I
ladies
just-
and gentlemen, I'd like to make this perfectly clear. Sarge said he did go hunting for moonshine steals. He was on duty at the time. It was not for personal consumption.
yes, no, it was not.
Okay. I just want to make that clear.
He may have taste tested, but just for verification purposes.
He said
Yeah.
he never busted any. He didn't say he didn't find any.
Exactly.
Oh, I think I did say. This is funny.
Anyway, Dead Horse, you threw us a couple ringers tonight. You got another one for us?
Oh yeah, I got here. This one you guys might definitely have something to talk about here. So, the government is spying on us.
Well,
Really?
That
Well,
ain't a
Well, no, I got actual documentation, like quoted, like actual fact that you can look up. So, here's the documentation. In 2016, government agencies, this includes all the alphabet agencies, okay, sent 49,868 requests for user data on Facebook, 27,850 to Google, and 9,076 to Apple. So that's basically 90,000 people that the government said we're going to spy on you, and that's public record. So that was just in 2016.
But was any of that law enforcement related? I mean, as far as like crime.
That's all the alphabet agencies: FBI, ATF, CIA. That's all the alphabet agencies saying, "Hey, we want this person's data," and this is all American citizens.
Were they American citizens or were they Facebook users?
American citizens.
It did say actual citizens.
Yeah, this is all American. Yeah.
I
mean,
say, but it could be people that are here illegally. It could be people that are plotting against us. There could be.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I guess. Yeah, maybe.
But given the circumstances of somebody's being
Does Facebook split up their Facebook?
do that.
You know what? I mean, I don't know what they did or what they didn't do, but sometimes you have to give up just a little bit of privacy to not have a jetliner fly into the World Trade Center. Things like that. That's where people have to. You got to give up just a little bit, not to have things happen in your own backyard. I'm not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but I don't want to get blown up going somewhere like they do in these third world countries or the other places. But it is what it is.
makes sense to me. I mean, I'm with you, Sarge.
I know, but what's my concern is what draws the red flag, right? Just posting a picture of a firearm online.
You know what?
Does that draw the red flag?
If that was it, they would have had 5 billion Facebook requests for user information. That isn't what I mean. You got to think this is the federal government. They cannot worry about nonsense that we're doing because we're not doing anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say a number of requests would be insane. You got Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter, all of that stuff. And we
They-
all
they-
post pictures of firearms and all this other stuff on there.
They probably have looked into us, and they looked into us for about 3 seconds and nope, and then went on something else.
Yeah.
Because
They
we're not a
probably did.
problem.
Like, we're going
Well,
to,
what I'm concerned is that there's no documentation on like, hey, this is what draws the red flags. This is, you know what I'm saying? So they can make it whatever they want and say like, oh, you do this one like little thing that's like normal to like pretty much half the population, but we consider it a red flag now, right? Like that's what concerns me is like, hey, like who's making the decision on like what do they deem, like, oh, we're gonna put you on the list and watch you and collect all your data and stuff.
Well,
who's
now,
making that
now,
decision?
could you end up on the list? Possibly. How much resources could they spend on any one of us that aren't doing anything? Can't waste time like that. I mean, they could look into me all they want. They could look at you all they want. They're going to be bored about anything, any plots that we're up to, and they're going to move on to something that is actually viable. So,
yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, they might get a good show here and there and get a laugh. But other than that, they're gonna be like, "Why the fuck are we wasting our money?"
well, they're going to come to Scotsman and wonder why he sold that black powder revolver for that drive-by.
So there's two things that I see that not being concerned about it. Number one is that, like you say, there's resources involved here. These are our employees, and if they're not watched, if there's not something looking over their shoulder, if it's paranoid conspiracy theorists, then unfortunately that's the people who have the time and interest to do it. But if there's not somebody watching over their shoulder, then how do we know they're not just wasting those resources and maybe not doing anything out to get us, but maybe wasting our resources by looking up their ex-girlfriends or what's my ex-wife doing? That takes time and money from us, and they're our taxpayers, and everything that they do in that building costs us money. And the second thing would be, I don't know what the repercussions are, but I highly suspect if the FBI looks in your anything, some kind of record, the same way that they know if we have a CCW when somebody pulls us over, I suspect there might be something left behind that says the FBI was at one time interested in this person, and you're now in a.
Now, what was that? What was that?
I'm in the middle of suggesting it, that if there's something that indicates the FBI was looking at you, whether that be records at the FBI or whether that be something left behind in your records when they ask for them, then that would be my concern. And I'm against big bureaucracy, and I believe it should be watched. So that's why I would have a concern against just saying, for the greater good, let's let them do what they feel like until they're abusing it. Because if we wait till abuse, then, well, I think a lot of little abuses can add up and be wasteful for the overall just budget, let alone, like I said, I just don't know what the repercussions are. If 6 months, 6 years later, you're having some issue with a neighbor and something comes up and, well, this guy did get flagged by the FBI 6 years ago. I don't know what the reason, I just don't know what that is, and I'd rather not have it be an issue if possible.
I've not run into that yet.
I don't know. If there was a concern that I had to have someone who's run into it before, then we wouldn't be able to have a conversation.
I've seen plenty of criminal histories, and I've not seen anything like that.
Well, but okay, but you're one person, and you've had X amount of cases or whatever that you can recall, and then that you looked at, and you might have looked right past it if it's something that's not unusual. But we're only talking about X amount of people.
Put you on the no-fly list.
There you go. That's the kind of stuff that I'm just, if all of a sudden you're on the no-fly list because you got looked at 3 times, because your name is similar, or you grew up next to someone, I just don't know. And that's where I'm concerned. Unless there's a good that comes out of letting them casually do what they feel like unregulated, then I just don't.
Well, no one said unregulated, but it also can't be monitored by the general public because they can't.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, no, you can't monitor by the general public. Then the bad guys know exactly what the good guys are doing. So I'm not saying it's easy, but.
That's what Congress does. They overlook these people. Then the Congress answers to us, and then the news media puts everything out there that they shouldn't. It's a vicious cycle right now. I'm not saying to sit there and let them run wild at all, but I think these red flags, they only have so much resources, and people only have so many hours in the day, and they cannot dedicate much time to dead ends. They have to spend the time on and I think they must be doing a decent job because we're not getting blown up constantly. We're not having terrorist attacks constantly. Yes, they do slip through the system sometimes, of course. Anyone
But
can.
less than lightning, way less than lightning.
Yeah, but we're less than everywhere else right now.
Yeah, but just think about, and you make a really good point there, Sarge, is, you know, they'll slip through the cracks here and there, but think about how many people are in the United States. One's going to slip through the cracks. It's going to happen. There's so many freaking people out here. It's consistently growing all the time. And then you add all the illegals as well and all that other stuff. There's a bunch of people. So they got a ton of work and a ton of people to monitor and view over. And, you know, if they're watching these lists and stuff like that, then, you know, it's a lot of work. So it's easy to miss something.
Yeah. Like I said, I know they have all kinds of records on me, and I don't care. I'm on here. It doesn't bother me a bit if anyone is monitoring this right now. You know, they can find out anything they want to about
Well,
me.
I want to say this: if they're monitoring me, they're getting very bored.
That's what I'm gonna say.
I go to work and I come home. That's it.
I was going to say, I'm on a list, and I know I am because, you know, it's obvious, but I'm probably on
you're a naturalized citizen.
One list, but that's all right. I get it. I understand it, and I have no problem with it. You know, the problem that I would have is if one of my rights was being infringed upon, but none of that's ever happened so far. So, you know.
Exactly. I don't think we're quite as infringed as we think we are.
Unless you're Night Strike.
Yes, but he shall not be infringed.
So he says, constantly. Speaking of Night Strike, I bet that was him.
I know a girl in stiletto heels that could change that real quick.
Nope, I was wrong. That was G.
You do have a question out there, Alice. You might want to look at that and answer it.
I'm looking at 10 different things at once here. Let's see.
On the YouTube side, Mr. Scary.
I'm waiting for it to. Will too much porn trigger a red flag? I don't know. You would have to ask Alan B. Pro that question. That's a question for Alan. I don't spend a whole lot of time on porn, so that Jan would probably be a good one to ask. Alan would definitely be a good one to ask. Wouldn't you say so, Scotsman?
Don't forget the gay pirate, Joey Cuz himself. He'd probably be one to ask too.
Hey, Joey don't do porn.
Well, he is the gay pirate.
Says you.
Says himself. Have you watched his videos? He puts it right in the front.
Well, anyway, Dead Horse, what else you got for us?
Okay, let's see here. How many of you guys have ever heard of MK Ultra?
I have.
I've heard of it, but you'll have to refresh my memory.
So MK Ultra was the CIA's little experiment on using psychotropic drugs on citizens. A lot of these people were volunteers, but they weren't necessarily told like the full effects that these drugs were going to have on them, right? So it'd be a complete surprise that they'd be seeing stuff on LSD and stuff like that, and people like Ken Kesey and Timothy Leary and stuff were part of these tests. And then they would come out and they told that they were like, you know, worked for the government and all this stuff on these drugs. And people didn't believe them for the longest fucking time. That people are like, oh no, yeah, you're a loon, right? And then it all turned out to be real and true. And Sirhan, if you guys remember him, like he's the guy who supposedly shot Robert Kennedy, right? Yeah. So Ted Kennedy came out and said that he thinks Sirhan was one of the people under the MK Ultra project and was like basically a mixture of brainwashing and hallucinogenic drugs and stuff. And he was, you know, the patsy for killing Robert Kennedy. and that Ted Kennedy thinks that Sirhan was 100% innocent, and that he was part of this MK Ultra program, and some weird stuff like that has come to light about MK Ultra, but 100% real. It really happened. Like some people committed suicide. Like they'd give it to some people at work, right, and stuff like that, and people would jump out their office building window and stuff like. So there was actually deaths and stuff because of this testing, because they would like give it to people out in public to see what would happen, and all sorts of weird, weird crap that is pretty bad, that they were doing.
Wow.
Yeah, they were administered pure LSD 25. Timothy Leary designed the drug, and basically, when the CIA found out what the drug was capable of doing to people by putting them in like an alternate state, they were wanting to use it as mind control to try to control this poison water systems in the USSR, and try to use it to control minds through poisoning entire water systems and stuff with LSD 25.
Well, what it was, I think, is that they didn't know really what was going to happen, from what I've read, and that's why they were experimenting. They didn't know if people were just going to tear each other apart, or if it would just make them all passive, or like what would happen. So like that's why they were experimenting and doing all these small batches of people. And there's actually video footage you can watch of some of these tests in like more controlled conditions, not the ones out in public. And I've given to people and them asking them questions and describing what they see and stuff. And it's pretty neat. And but like our government was out there poisoning people.
They might have thought it was going to go one way and it went a complete other.
But that was actually one of the real big first government conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, really. I mean, that was like one of the very first big ones that we found out about. We found out about that like in the 70s, that was true. So
there's just so many of them out there, and so many of them we could go through. Hit us with one more, and we're going to call it a night. So make it a good one.
Okay. One more. All right. Let's see here. One more. Cats are aliens. They're alien spies sent by aliens.
What? Okay, I thought you said these were documented proof.
This is documented proof. You haven't heard my evidence yet.
Okay, well let's.
Okay, so before ancient Egypt, there's no documentation anywhere. Not in ancient Sumeria, not in cave paintings, not in like ancient France. Nowhere in the fucking world is there mention of cats anywhere in the world before ancient Egypt. And ancient Egypt also said that cats were a gift from the gods, right? And they were worshipped as gifts from the gods. So they were super highly revered in ancient Egypt, right? So basically ancient Egypt said like, oh, aliens gave us these cats. And so then there's all sorts of like a cat's purr can't be duplicated, and it can't be explained by science. Right? Like the closest thing to it is like a reverb of like when you stick like two phones together or something with the speakers on, you get that sound. Like that's the closest thing we can get to it. If you push a cat's ears back, what does it look like? A gray alien. I'm saying. Like, okay, so cats, like, oh, like we're supposed to be like the biggest, baddest species on Earth. Well, then how come cats can see like way better than us? You know, like, have you ever seen a cat like all of a sudden just jump up, like in the middle of a sleeping, just jump up and run out of the room? Well, it's getting a transmission from the mothership. Have you ever seen a cat like jump off of a four? Have you ever seen like cats like jump off of a 4-story building, do a backflip and shit, and land on his feet? That's that's anti-gravity technology that only aliens have. Everything that comes out of a cat is completely unnatural, like not of this earth, right? Like, have you ever seen the kind of shit that can come out of a cat? Like, it's not from this earth. I'm telling you.
Way to end it with an awesome one. That is freaking awesome.
Like, if you die, your cats will fucking eat you, right? Like, that's alien shit right there. I'm telling you. That's like, have you seen the movie Aliens? Like, that's where they
Some
got
dogs.
Hey, that's the only true thing he said out of that entire thing. I can explain scientifically everything he said. But good, that was a good one though, Dad.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are they psychic? Do they have telepathic abilities?
I don't know. I think they're just like little, like, I think aliens are so advanced, right? Instead of robots, they can make biological robots, basically, just out of like tissue and DNA and stuff, right? And so that's what cats are, is they're the little spies, and they sit there and spy on us, right? And they document our lives for the aliens, right? And that's why cats don't do shit for us, right? Like nothing at all. And they're just like lay around all day and just lazy, and, you know, like you can't teach them to do anything for you, right? And that's why they're just so weird ass all the time, right?
Okay.
Teach a
Hold
cat
on.
to sit.
But
Hold
all
on.
you have to do to trap a cat is put a cardboard box out in the middle of the floor.
Yep.
They do
Okay.
that to test us.
Or
Like,
his bag.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can test this right here live on this show tonight. Gary, where is George?
Where's George? George is over, about 10 feet to the right of me.
Has he been listening to this broadcast?
I'm sure he has.
Okay. Well, we need to have a discussion with Mr. George. George, come here. I need you on camera, George.
Hey, George, come here. Come on. Come here.
You're right. He don't listen.
Well, cats only do what they want to.
Yeah, cats. Exactly. Cats are just.
And they can't taste sweet, by the way. In case you need to know that, too.
That explains what the Chinese must have already knew about all this. That's why they've been eating them for centuries.
They eat dogs as well. My mother-in-law is Chinese, and she says it's a regular occurrence in the poor communities to eat dog.
It all tastes like chicken.
And the Scotsman would know.
I actually worked in a Chinese restaurant, so yes, I would.
How does a Scotsman get a job at a China? That's a conspiracy right there. How does a Scotsman get a job at a Chinese restaurant?
I actually worked in a Chinese restaurant for 2 years back home.
Wow.
Scottish Chinese food? Oh, my gosh.
It all tastes like chicken.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Stir-fried haggis.
we have officially heard everything tonight.
oh, I forgot. Wait, I forgot one more. Did you guys know that there's aliens buried in New Mexico?
I'm sure.
Yeah, the Atari
Roswell.
video game E.T. was so failed so miserably that they buried like a couple 100,000 cartridges of that video game out in the desert in New Mexico.
Yeah,
There's literally an alien buried out there. So.
yeah. I watched that documentary. Thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, so did I. I thought that was pretty good.
Ladies and gentlemen, apparently George has decided he didn't want to make an appearance tonight since his cover has been officially blown. We will get George on here next time, and we will get to the bottom of this whole, alien cat conspiracy.
He just doesn't want to be chicken, so he just gave Gary the bird.
That's right.
So we will get to the bottom of this, I promise. But for right now, we are calling this show quits. Done. We're putting a fork in it. Guys, I would like to thank each and every one of you for showing up, for being here. Let's go through the panel one time and find out what they got to say. We'll start with David.
Thank you very much, Outlaw, for having me on. I appreciate it very much, sir. Like to give a holler out to Gun Channels and the Daily Gun Show, and to Reloading that me and Dead are doing right now. Check us out on Dead Horse's channel. Thank you, Outlaw.
Hey, not a problem, brother. You are officially one of the Outlaw gang, so we'll have you back sometime.
Yes, sir.
Dead Horse, what you got, buddy?
So I'm going to blow everyone's mind away with the last thing. If you type in Illuminati backwards in your browser and then .com, so Illuminati backwards and then .com, it takes you to the NSA website, National Security Agency website. So obviously the Illuminati is our government.
Wow. Okay. That's the first time I've heard of that one. Gary, what about you?
Well, I'm not going to try that for one. Thanks for the invite. Check me out at gizzardgary.com. And I too urge everybody to check out and join gunchannels.com. It's a great place to be. Leave here, please go over and check out the Daily Gun Show. Also check out guntube.org, a great place for Second Amendment friendly video repository. And as always, like, share, and subscribe to the Outlaw Hatfield. You'll be glad you did.
Thank you. Sarge is saying wrap it up over there. What's going on, Sarge?
No, I was like, yes, subscribe to Outlaw.
Now, Sarge, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, me and Sarge has secretly sort of been working on a project.
We're forming an alliance.
We are forming an alliance.
That's a key word.
Yeah. The sheriff and the outlaw working together. Can you believe it? We are working on a. We're not sure how often we're going to do this, but we're going to try to get a show up and running centered around professional wrestling.
Old school
professional wrestling. We're working on dates and times and all this other stuff. We don't know exactly when the first show's coming yet. We've been going back and forth a little bit. Our schedules do not mesh very well.
I'm thinking we'll end up probably monthly, because that's 12 a year. That's a lot.
No, that's fine. We can do one of those shows every month. And I was thinking we'd alternate it, do a show on your channel, do a show on my channel. That way, it's evens out. But it's going to be basically all professional wrestling, because that's something me and Sarge have a passion about, especially the old stuff when it was real wrestling and not sports entertainment, watered down by Mr. Vince McMahon. So this is what we've got in the works. Sarge, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm excited. We just gotta nail down a place to start and kind of a premise. But like you said, I grew up around, and it's not just because I was younger. It was, if you go back and watch it now, it was much more believable than it was. I watched some documentaries on it, and if you watch some documentaries, which we'll get into on the show, it talks about how it really dates back to like Roman times, where societies always wanted to watch violence like this, but we just prefer our violence to be fake, or predetermined. So I think we'll have some good chats, and I'm actually pretty excited for it.
Yeah, so am I. I was thinking that first show is just going to be, and we'll probably end up centering each show on a particular match or a particular wrestler or a particular manager or tag team, instead of going all over the board with it. I was thinking that maybe we could do that first show on Bobby Heenan. He just recently passed, and he's been gone about a year and a half.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in the recent past.
And he was a professional wrestling manager that done it all in the business. He started off as a wrestler, um, you know, then moved on to be one of the most successful managers and then broadcasters in the history of professional wrestling. So I think that that would be a good place for us to start with the first show and then move on from there. And believe me, we've got years of content just waiting on us right there.
Oh yeah, never know. We might be able to line up some guests that would be fantastic to talk to.
Well, like I said before, I have been in contact with Bill Dundee. He said he's willing to do the show. I just have to work out a date and a time to get him, get everything lined up. So, and for those of you that don't know, Superstar Bill Dundee wrestled in the Mid-Atlantic area for a while. He was in Memphis for a long time. Did a little bit in the NWA on Turner Television, TBS. So he's been around a while. He's been doing this since the mid-70s, and he still wrestles today, as far as I know. He's been at it a long time. Him and Jerry Lawler had some knockdown, drag out fights. It looked like anyway, and probably has one of the best punches in wrestling. Period. His punches looked absolutely believable. So, Scotsman, what you got?
Not a whole lot. Appreciate the link, brother. Always good times with good people. It's been a crazy week last week for me. We did the giveaway there Sunday.
By the way, I missed that show. What happened?
Some lucky son bitch won my Model 19-3.
I just sent him my address, so you can go ahead and start mailing it anytime now.
It was not Sarge.
Well, it wasn't me either, apparently.
No, it was not you either. But it was awesome. We had a good show. We had a lot of people there. It was good times. It's not over yet. There'll be more coming. I'm not giving away any more of my guns. I'm done giving away my guns. But there'll be some more stuff to help these guys out because it's not over yet. The fight continues. Other than that, man, I'll have some videos hopefully coming out here this week on some new reloading stuff going on. Other than that, that's all I got, man. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you're very welcome. You're welcome here anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get off here, I want to say a few words. We are still trying to get this hashtag We Are Social Media out there. I still want to see videos. Nobody's putting out these videos. I've begged, I've pleaded. Everybody has a right to voice their opinion. You don't have to agree with that opinion. And grant you, yes, we know the argument. These social media platforms are privately owned entities. I understand that. But if they're going to be a privately owned entity that says you have the ability to speak your mind, then that includes everybody's opinions, everybody's thoughts, whether or not we agree with it. I don't agree with 90% of what comes out of Barack Obama's mouth or Hillary Clinton's mouth, but they still have a right to say it. And if I don't like it, I don't have to listen to it. And
exactly.
And that's the thing right there. Just because we don't agree with something does not mean somebody else doesn't have a right to say it. It's not right that they're silencing anybody, Alex Jones or anybody else. I don't want to be silenced. Nobody on this panel wants to be silenced. And it's time that we stood up and we let these people know that we are social media. They wouldn't be living in their houses if we, the content creators, and if you are on Facebook, if you post a post on Facebook, you are a content creator. Therefore, you are social media. And that goes the same with Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, any platform that you are on, big or small, you are social media. So I want to see people posting that on their Facebook pages. I want to see it on Instagram. I want to see videos on YouTube. I want to see it everywhere. Twitter. Come on, people, get out there. We are social media. Get those videos out there, get them flying, and encourage other people to get it out there and explain what it's about. Guys, that's it for me tonight. G Webs is probably up and going by now with the Daily Gun Show. Y'all go over there, hit him up, and we will talk to you later.